The problem with Hadrian's Vallum: historians and archaeologists think they have the Romans all figured out, how they built, why they built, and what their empire was trying to do. But let's take a closer look at one of their greatest projects in Britain, Hadrian's Wall, and the mysterious earthwork that runs alongside it, known as the Vallum. Quoting English Heritage. According to English Heritage, permanent conquest of Britain began in AD 43. By about AD 100, the northernmost army units were stationed along the Tyne-Solway Isthmus, linked by a road known today as the Stanigate between Corbridge and Carlisle. Hadrian came to Britain in AD 122 and, according to a biography written 2 centuries later, put many things to right and was the first to build a wall 80 miles long from sea to separate the barbarians from the Romans. Construction probably began that same year and took at least 6 years to complete. The plan was simple: a wall of stone or turf, with a guarded gate every mile, 2 observation towers in between, and a wide ditch in front. Before the work was finished, 14 forts were added, followed by a great earthwork to the south, the Vallum. Questioning the narrative, really? So what exactly is this Vallum then? Let's read on. English Heritage continues. The wall was placed slightly north of the existing line of forts, carefully following the contours of the land. It was surveyed from both ends toward the middle. Most of it was to be stone, though the eastern 30 miles were turf. Each mile had a gate and a small guard post, the Mile Castle, with 2 towers between. To the south, an earthwork 120 Roman feet wide, around 35 metres, was later added, a central ditch flanked by 2 mounds. The purpose of this vallum, presumably, was to protect the rear of the frontier zone. So the vallum is a defensive ditch? Sounds simple, doesn't it? Except it isn't. Field observations and LiDAR evidence. In studying over 1,497 dykes across Britain and Ireland, measured and categorised using LiDAR, I noticed something odd. Some of these prehistoric dykes cut through the vallum. That shouldn't happen if the vallum was Roman or defensive. In several cases, the vallum actually starts or ends where a prehistoric dike crosses its line. So I began tracing the vallum using high-resolution LiDAR data, and what I found didn't match the English heritage story at all. Example: Scheduled Monuments Section 10100987. Let's look at one particular section, Scheduled Monument 110100987, the vallum between the field boundary southeast of Headswood and the A6021 road in Wall Mile 57. Problem 1. Gaps. The vallum disappears for over 3 kilometres, 3,000 metres, simply gone. Not a very effective defensive structure, wouldn't you say? And these gaps appear repeatedly along the wall. Problem 2. Construction. Then there's its sheer size. LiDAR maps show the vallum is 36 metres wide, with 2 banks, each 13 metres across, and a central ditch 10 metres wide with a flat bottom. Flat-bottomed, not V-shaped. If it was defensive, it's a very bad design. A real military ditch is narrow and deep, V-shaped, with a single bank behind it for a palisade, forcing attackers to fall in and break their legs. This one, you could march across it. Problem 3. Alignment. Sometimes the vallum isn't even near the wall. It wanders off into the lowlands, follows rivers and shorelines, and often connects to much older dykes, prehistoric ones. An alternative explanation. The evidence suggests the vallum wasn't a defensive ditch at all, but a dike, a canal-like waterway. That would make far more sense. Consider the logistics. How else do you move 2 million cubic metres of stone to build the wall? Carts? Horses? Hardly. Water transport was the only viable solution. The vallum's twin banks would have served as towpaths, allowing 2-way traffic, something even the later Victorian canals didn't manage. When the canal silted up, the southern bank became what we now call the Military Way Road, a continuation of the original route used to transport goods. Prehistoric routes. It's also possible, even likely, that a prehistoric dike already existed here, like Wansdyke or Offarsdyke, and the Romans simply reused it. Why build from scratch when you can adapt what's already there? It would have saved enormous labour and cost. Conclusion. The more we examine Hadrian's Vallum with modern tools like LiDAR, the less it looks like a Roman defensive work, and the more it resembles a prehistoric canal, later repurposed by the Romans. A full study of the Vallum, along with comparative analysis from the Antonine Wall and other ancient dykes, will be presented in my forthcoming book.